So Stranger Things 5 Volume 2 is officially here, and I just want to say to all the Byler hopefuls out there, my condolences. But also, we told you so. So the other night, after I finished watching the 3 new episodes of Stranger Things, I went to check my phone and was surprised to see how many people seemed to be really underwhelmed with this new volume. Because personally, I actually thought it was pretty good and does a nice job of setting us up for what is hopefully a great finale to the show. So, let's take a second to go over the good, the bad, and the potential finale ramifications of Stranger Things 5 Volume 2. So one of the things I was really hoping for in Volume 2 was that the show would slow things down and give its characters more time to breathe. I really liked Volume 1, but one of my few issues with it was that it felt like we were moving so quickly from plot beat to plot beat that we weren't getting enough time to have those important character moments that are ultimately the reason that we love Stranger Things so much in the first place and are pivotal for wrapping the show up in a satisfying way. But this volume completely solved all of my issues with that. As soon as we start with episode 5, it's clear that we are getting a lot more time to spend on these quieter character moments, and it really feels like all of these relationships that have just been simmering throughout this season and even going back to season 4 are all finally coming to a head. We see Nancy and Jonathan finally acknowledging that, yes, there is problems between them and that they have not been completely honest with each other. Meanwhile, Steve and Dustin's relationship completely boils over, where they're getting into a full-on brawl where Steve is just eating punches, but at the same time you see that he's not punching Dustin back because he doesn't want to hurt him. And I think both Joe Keery and Gaten Matarazzo have to be given credit because their acting in this scene just brought out all the emotions. And when the fight wraps up and you see Steve kind of walking away and he's on the verge of tears and Dustin is on the verge of tears, it's just heartbreaking because it's one of those scenes where you have two friends that have this unresolved issue between them and there is so much anger, but at the same time, there's also so much love, which is why it hurts both of them to even be fighting like this in the first place. Now we get the big revelation this episode that all of the numbers, 8, 11, and all of Brenner's kids got their powers from Henry. Now this is something we didn't know throughout the show. We thought Brenner was just experimenting on these kids and he was able to see who would respond. But no, it was in fact all from Henry's blood. And this has some big ramifications because this now means the military is going to be coming after 11 to try and get her blood, and this presumably won't stop even after they have killed Henry, which we'll get to a little bit later when we talk about Callie's plan in episode 7. Now the fight between Vecna and Will, where Will is basically using Vecna's methods against him, possessing him in order to save Max and Holly, was definitely one of the standouts of this volume. Like, Will's arc throughout this season has been incredible, and out of all the characters, I think he's the one that's been elevated the most, so seeing him fight back and give Vecna a taste of his own medicine was so satisfying. And Noah Schnapp's acting in the scene, was really selling it. Like, the aggression on his face, paired with the overall vibe of the scene, with all of the flickering lights going off, made this probably one of the better sequences in the entire season so far. Now, episode 6, Escape from Camazotz, is massive. And I think for me, probably the best episode of the entire season so far. The reveal that the Upside Down is actually a wormhole or a bridge to another dimension, Dimension X or the Abyss, I thought was pretty damn cool. There's just something about the sci-fi nature of it, and it's interesting to know that everything we've seen of the Upside Down in the show has taken place within that wormhole. At the same time, I still do have some questions. Like, why is the Upside Down frozen in time from the day that Will is taken? I don't feel like they've really explained that very well. And also, if the Upside Down is this bridge between the two worlds, why is it only a mirror image to the right side up and Hawkins instead of also mirroring the Abyss? Will we get answers to those questions? Probably not, and that is a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, I'm just impressed that the Duffer Brothers actually managed to provide what is in my eyes a satisfying answer to a question that fans have been asking since the very beginning of this show with regards to what the Upside Down actually is. Now we also get a little bit closer to seeing what went down in that cave that has Henry absolutely pissing himself. Now, I believe those of you who've watched Stranger Things: The First Shadow, that Broadway play, already know the answer to this, so please don't tell me because I think the show is going to tell me in the finale, so I'd rather find out then. But if I had to guess right now, I'm going to assume that this is when Henry first gets his powers. And so whatever is in that briefcase, whether it's the particles, the mind flayer, or something the scientists have captured from the abyss, probably goes into Henry, and from that moment on, he has powers, which would explain why he's so terrified of that cave, because it's basically a very traumatic moment where his life changed forever. Now, Steve and Dustin finally get to make up, where we see Dustin express his concern for Steve and how he can't bear to lose another friend the way that he lost Eddie. And one of the themes of this show that is so recurring is this idea of how reaching out to your friends and opening up to them can actually save lives. And once again, they do it so brilliantly here, where they show you Steve about to go on this ladder, and then Dustin reaches out to him. He opens up to him and pulls him back, and they have this really nice moment where as Steve and Dustin are holding each other, the ladder falls, showing you that literally Dustin, by reaching out to Steve, saved his life. And this to me has always been the strength of the Duffer Brothers' writing. Their ability to actually bring the themes of friendship into the story and have it literally saving lives without it feeling cheesy or forced is very impressive. That being said, as much as I love Steve and Dustin's dynamic, am I the only one that kind of wants Dustin to spend some time with the other kids? Like, Dustin is one of the original kids, along with Mike and Lucas and Will, but unfortunately, he's just never really around them anymore, which, I don't know, kind of bothers me. So I do hope going into the finale, it won't be just Dustin and Steve together the entire time, and he will get a chance to reunite with the others. Now, these satisfying payoffs just keep coming in this episode, because then we get the Nancy and Jonathan scene. Now, I firmly believed going into the season that Nancy and Jonathan would end up together, but that doesn't seem to be the case, as this scene was basically a breakup. But honestly, even though it's not what I expected, I'm not mad at it. Like, the show does a really good job of explaining that Nancy in particular doesn't know what she wants, and because they're constantly running around saving the world, she's also never really got the chance to just live her life. And so I think it made sense for Nancy to decide that she just needs to be on her own for some time. The scene was beautifully executed, and it's heartbreaking, because clearly there's still a lot of love between the two characters, so them calling it quits on such pleasant terms almost makes it worse. Like, I feel like it would somehow be less painful if they broke up because they hated each other. And I'm not gonna lie, I fully thought they were going to die in this scene. But I guess the power of plot armor is just too strong. Because someone tell me, how did they survive? Like, the place was flooding, and then all of a sudden, Jonathan throws the ring on the floor, and it's solid now? They're just good? I mean, I just don't understand why the Duffer Brothers are doing fake outs. Like, why make us think they're going to die just to chicken out at the last second and be like, no, don't worry, we don't kill main characters in this show. Now, one of the things we knew from the trailers was that at some point there was going to be a Demogorgon attack on the hospital, and this scene completely lived up to the hype. I like how they're playing both sides when it comes to Will and Vecna being in each other's minds. Where on one hand, it feels like a boss move that Will can now get into Vecna's mind and start to fight him, but at the same time, it also creates a huge problem, because now Vecna can use Will as a spy once again to find out where Max's physical body is. There was that one shot in the trailers where the demo dog is running towards the open elevator and Lucas is standing there carrying Max's body, and I was like, dude, how the actual hell is Lucas getting out of this situation? I was like, okay, some magic is going to be involved, some crazy stuff is going to happen, and then it turns out Lucas just kicks it. That's it. Lucas just kicks the shit out of that demo dog, and that's it. You know, sometimes, guys, you don't need to overthink things in life. Something's running at you, just kick it and move on, especially if your character is insured by plot armor. The rest of the sequence was also incredible, with this Jurassic Park style scene where they're in the laundry room, and even Karen Wheeler got to come in clutch so that Max could finally escape and come back to the real world. Just keep in mind, we have still not seen Ted since episode 2. Like, this dude got sliced up and then the show just completely forgot about him. Now, episode 7 is the one that I've heard the most complaints about from people saying that not much happens in it. And while I agree that it is less eventful in terms of the plot, I also think it's a pretty nice calm before the storm episode. We get some more great character moments, our heroes are doing their planning and just putting all of the pieces in place so that when we do get to that finale, we're ready to go right away. Of course, we get the Max and Lucas reunion that has been a long time coming, and both Caleb McLaughlin and Sadie Sink's performances here are incredible, but it's not surprising because pretty much all of their scenes together, I think, are some of the high points of this show. Now, we also get to see Holly wake up and try to make her escape, And this is where I start to get frustrated with some of the inconsistencies around Vecna. Like when he's around characters that we actually know, it feels like the show is holding him back in order to make things easier for our heroes. Like Holly is running away from Vecna and he just casually walks towards her and does nothing to stop her. And then when she's falling through the sky, about to turn into a pancake, he's able to use the Force to pull her all the way back up into the sky and through into the abyss. Like, why didn't he just do that before when she was running away from him? Like back in episode 4, when he shows up to fight the soldiers, I mean, he's just dropping bodies, impaling people, but then as soon as he gets around a character that, we actually care about, it's like he's being nerfed to 10% power, and that does get very frustrating. Now, speaking of frustrating, what the hell is going on with Callie? Look, I understand her point. As long as Elle and her are around, the military will continue to come after them and try to use their blood. At the same time, I feel like something is very suspicious about her, like the way she's just so desperate for Eleven and her to die together when we really don't know what she's been up to over the past 3 seasons makes me feel like there might be some ulterior motive at play. Now, as for Elle, I think there's a couple different ways I feel like her story could end. One is she could just die. That would solve the problem, as the military wouldn't be able to get to her anymore. 2 is that maybe Elle somehow loses her powers. I really don't know how that would work, but maybe if she lost her powers, then her blood wouldn't pass on the abilities, so the military wouldn't need her. But 3, and this is my personal pick, I think she might get, and hear me out, Batman's ending from The Dark Knight Rises. If you haven't seen The Dark Knight Rises and don't want it spoiled, I'll put a timestamp on screen for where you should skip to, but basically, I'm imagining a scenario where the military and the world at large thinks that Elle and Callie have died, therefore stopping them from trying to hunt them down, while Elle gets to secretly live out a peaceful life with Mike somewhere far away with at least one waterfall. Kind of similar to how the ending of The Dark Knight Rises has Bruce essentially fake his death and live out his life in peace. Now, probably the most divisive scene to come out of this volume is Will's coming out scene. Some people think it's great, while others think it's completely unnecessary. And I understand the criticism that the world is about to end, so is this really the time for Will to sit everyone down and tell them, hey, I don't like girls? But I would argue, because of how well the show sets things up, this scene is absolutely necessary. The show has done such a great job of establishing over the last 2 seasons that Vecna preys on our heroes' insecurities. He preys on the secrets that our heroes keep from others. He preys on the shame that our heroes have. So to me, this was really a scene of Will understanding that before this final battle, he has to get rid of those secrets. He has to get rid of the shame, and he has to open up to everyone. After all, that doubt and fear is what Vecna has always had over Will, and it's why after coming out, Will says, I'm ready to show him that I'm not afraid anymore. So yes, is episode 7 a bit slower and less eventful? From a plot point of view, sure, but I think it's a necessary episode that puts all of the pieces in place for us to basically have a 2-hour finale that is just an all-out battle to end the show. Now, heading into the finale, I'm just gonna say it, people need to die. And I'm gonna tell you why. Heading into this final episode, the tension and the stakes are not whether the heroes are going to win or lose. Because let's be honest, we know the heroes are going to win. Vecna's plan of crashing these 2 worlds together and creating a world of darkness obviously is not going to happen. So as we head into that final episode, the stakes are not whether the heroes will succeed. Instead, it's what will it cost them in order to succeed. How much will they have to give up in order to defeat Vecna? And that's why I think it is imperative that a main character or a couple main characters don't make it out of this final episode. Because if they manage to defeat Vecna and this show ends with all of our main characters walking away unscathed, I'm sorry, but that just ain't gonna cut it. It would feel way too easy and would not justify our heroes finally being able to beat the conflict that has haunted them for all 5 seasons of the show. And when I say main character, I mean main characters. Like even someone like Joyce or Robin wouldn't cut it as a death here. Like I think we need to pick one of our main kids. Now, out of this group, who do I think is actually going to die? Well, I think Steve is off the table because I don't think they would have Dustin lose another friend after the loss of Eddie. And since they keep saying, if you die, I die, if Steve's off the table, I feel like Dustin's probably off the table as well. Another person who's safe is Max, who just got out of her coma, so to kill her again right now would be very redundant. I also think Lucas is safe because to kill him just after Max got back to him would probably be too cruel for the Duffer brothers. Nancy and Jonathan are probably also safe because they did a pump fake on their death in episode 6, so if they weren't going to commit to it then, they're probably not going to commit to it now. And this leaves us with Will, Mike, and Eleven. Everyone's favorite non-existent love triangle. I honestly think one of these three is most likely to go in the finale. 11, obviously, as they've already set up this idea that her and Callie might sacrifice themselves to prevent future experimentation. Will, we know, is connected to the hive mind and is going to be directly involved in the final battle against Vecna, and I can also see Mike making a sort of surprising sacrifice play in order to save either 11 or Will. He hasn't had a big hero's moment yet in the season, and given how close he is to both of our heroes, one being his girlfriend and the other being his best friend, he would make a lot of sense as an emotional sacrifice to save either of the two. But at the end of the day, guys, these are just my thoughts. Let me know yours down in the comments. If you guys like this video and want to watch another, click somewhere on the screen to see what YouTube thinks you'd enjoy, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.